Hello, it's October 2023, and I'm going to be talking once again about the cycles of civilization. And I've talked about this in videos since I've been doing videos, and even a long time prior. Now, what is the cycles of civilization? Now, before I get into all this is important to know, because this tells us where we are in the world today and what we're facing and what are the challenges, and moreover, what's next. And I'm just going to segue further by saying, for example, about a year and a half, even 2 years prior to the end of the first phase of what has been, or what was being imposed all around the world was going to end. I said, even in 2020, when it would end, and that, as a descriptive prediction, came true. And there's no crystal ball or anything else. It's knowing the cycles of civilization. And that's what I'm trying to highlight with, for example, when I address truther types and freedom types. And I've done videos even recently talking about all that. The cycles of civilization. In brief, hard times create strong people. Strong people create good times. Good times create weak people, and weak people create hard times. And that is where we are today. Weak people creating hard times. When you go back throughout history, go back, say, 100 years, and this pattern, there's a pattern within the cycles of civilization. There's different patterns that we can observe. But we go back, say, about 100 years, what we see are hard times, people rebuilding. And, for example, there was World War I soon after the 1900s began. There was a cohesion. People worked together, whether it be to fight the war or to build something. And it's during these times we really observe, for example, the rite of passage. So we have young adult teenagers, much more mature than even most adults today, because they were dealing with hard times. And through all that, as a strong descriptive, the whole conservative, strict attitude is what allows civilization to form, to build a strong foundation. And the people of those times, it wasn't easy. They were self-reliant, self-accountable. They had extreme ownership to their successes as well as their failures. And it's through the failures that we learn. And they pass on these traditions, social standards, and values from our perspective from the days of old. These are the things that in today's world, especially the youth, want to dismiss, to throw away. Now, part of this problem relies on social conditioning or social engineering, and we can see that across the board. The whole idea of today that the days of old don't apply, throw them away, they're stupid, is all nonsense. We had cohesion of societies, we had cohesion within the families and friends, neighborhoods, everything, and people cared about each other, people helped each other. This is what civilization, the foundation of all civilizations, are made of. Hard times create strong people. Once the hard times, say for example wars, and we also, we're not forgetting World War II, which happened some decades afterwards, which is still hard times. Now, I'm not going to address what the world wars were about, or who's behind them and all this other stuff. The point is, people had to face it. And people didn't want to. And I'm sure at the time, World War I and World War II, people were protesting and everything else, thinking that they're making a change. It never stopped anything. And that's why I ask people today, especially within the truther and freedom communities, so people are trying to fight for freedom. What are people doing or going to do differently than people in the past? Because whatever as a descriptive the agendas were and are, to just keep moving forward. I digress. From strong people, they create the good times. We have some luxuries. We have an abundance, and we still have an abundance today. And for example, I've talked about even recently how there's no food shortage and how truckloads of food daily all over the place are being taken to the dumps. We have an abundance. So the strong people create a civilization, an environment that is comfortable. And then from that comfortable, we see a decadence. So the good times that the strong people create start to create weak people. And then the weak people start to rebel. And that, from a traditional historical perspective, is an awakening where people want to begin rejecting history and everything else. In our timeline, we're looking at the good times being around the 1950s. After 2 world wars, the 1950s was the beginning of the age of decadence. Even into the 60s. But in the 60s, what we have, again, from a traditional historical perspective, is what's known as the Great Awakening. It's an awakening that wants to break free from the constraints by the strong people who had to endure and build a solid foundation. What's interesting today, especially among the truther and freedom types, they say, well, we are in the Great Awakening. No, it's already come and gone, that Great Awakening. According to traditional historical perspectives, we are not in the Great Awakening. I'll get to that. So people are trying to break free, trying to say, no, the old-fashioned stuff doesn't matter, and try to build something new. Now we have a layer of a solid foundation layer, and now we're starting to build a weaker layer. From that, we start to see society being fragmented completely. It starts off in big chunks, and those chunks get smaller and smaller and smaller to the point where we are today. Today, according to traditional historical perspectives, we are in the unraveling, where weak people create hard times. And it's all about me, the individual. Part of this is through social engineering, social conditioning. It's being imposed, the social conditioning, because those who are imposing know the cycles of civilization. They know the patterns within, and they simply, as a descriptive, capitalize on it for control. A lot of people think, well, it's all about the money, it's all about wealth. No, it's not. It has nothing to do with money. As someone who once briefly walked with the elitists of the world, the people who control the politicians and everything else, it's not, it's so far removed from them. Yeah, sure, there's a byproduct to it where they can accumulate more wealth, but that's not how they look at it. But that's a different topic that I have discussed in other videos. They know the cycles of civilization, and they know the patterns within. And I said even in 2020 that what has been going on, for example, for the past 3 years or so, we're repeating it. About 100 years ago, we went through the whole same thing. There's nothing new. And people were divided as they are today, with those who want things to be, for example, imposed, and those who don't want it and think that they're fighting and making a change. And that is really where, as a descriptive again, my predictions of when it would end, long before any protests of rubber, as I describe, with trucks and people partying in the streets, long before. And it turned out to come to fruition, just as I said it would. The whole protest by rubber with the trucks and everything else that totally blew up came at the time when those imposing knew that the first phase of that is coming to an end. Orchestrated, planned. And that's why I keep trying to tell people that all the online celebrities and so-called heroes that are being promoted today are part of the plan. Go off on another little tangent. For example, with Canadians, they say, well, at least we got to see how far the government would go with imposing more. That was part of the plan. There's nothing really to see, because if it wasn't for the perceived efforts of people thinking that they're going to make some sort of change the world, where these people can't even help one person with injustice, which is part of tyranny, but they want to change the world. They have no experience and not even willing to help one person. People will, yes, come together. If nothing else, that's all it accomplished. This protest of rubber was bringing people together, but whatever. They only will do that when it's impacting them. But all of the countless cases that happen daily of injustice sets the stage for bigger injustices like tyranny to unfold. No one has stopped any of that. And that's my point with all that. I'm not coming down on or dissing, for example, truthers and freedom types. Good intentions, but good intentions pave the road to hell. And I've said many times, if you're free, act free. The biggest thing that I've been trying to highlight, especially over the past several years, is just to survive. And that's what it's all about. Weak people think that it's something more, that they want to give themselves a purpose to feel good about themselves and say, well, at least history is going to forget about everyone. What about all the people, for example, 100 years ago who were going against everything that we're experiencing today that's being imposed with, as a descriptive, and I'm calculating my words here for a reason, you probably figured out. People were going against exactly the same things today. Do you know any of the names of the groups? Do you know anything that they had to deal with legally? No. It's just forgotten. The ones that had survived are the ones that can carry on and tell the story. But anyway, the cycles of civilization is a real thing, and the patterns within are a real thing, and that is key to know how to survive, what to expect. And we are in, from the traditional historical perspective, in that stage. We're in the late stage of the last stage of civilization, the age of decadence, again. And we repeat history because history is forgotten either by chance or design. And what always follows is our demise. people think and then pat themselves on the back thinking, well, we're fighting all this. Those are the people who are scared. They're reacting based on fear. The strong people see what's happening and they prepare, overcome, adapt, and move forward without compromising themselves. That's it. There's no, as I said before, no crystal ball to see what's going to happen. And for all the freedom and truther types out there who don't even acknowledge the cycles of civilization and everything else, they're only looking at for example, the symptoms of what's being imposed. It's very superficial. And the people who don't talk about these things are the ones that are most dangerous, because they convince other people who are living in fear, leading them astray, so to say. And I even talked in a recent video how these people, their lives are not destroyed, who are called heroes and everything else, and their lives are great and they're prospering off of it all. Because the people who resist anything on any topic is anticipated. And the smart ones, even coming from either side or any side, say, hey, there's an opportunity here. And they have the initiative to take an extra step and create a temporary name for themselves and profit off of it and everything else. I just really want to highlight to everyone the cycles of civilization and the patterns of within. And for a lot of people, this is tinfoil hat talk and everything else. Well, you want to know something, if that's how you want to look at it, then so be it. And if you want to continue to partake and be part of the worldwide agenda of things being imposed, then, well, that's on you. And history is going to look back, just like we look back at history, and we can say, for those in the know, yeah, those people contributed to the problem. Other people who went along with it right from the get-go contributed to the problem. And the little sliver of people in between all that are the ones that survived, and they're telling their story. We today are descendants of those people. But through the promotion of youth and giving youth a voice and everything else, we're just falling apart. We're in the unraveling stage. I just want to really just give you some things to think about again, and that's all my videos really try to do, is say, hey, listen, for example, things are not as they appear, regardless on what side of the fence you're on. I don't pick on, although I talk a lot about truther types and freedom types, I treat, for example, as a descriptive, mainstream NPCs just the same. I'm not taking a side on either. I'm simply stating, as someone standing in between, and there's a lot of people like me, they reach out, they say, yeah, and they get it. I'm not trying to change minds or anything else. I said this repeatedly over the past decade or more in videos, I don't tell people what to say, think, or do. I just try to offer, most times, insight that most people do not have because of the paths that I've walked in life. And as well, from that first-hand knowledge, which is key, I've explored, some might call it research, those topics, or went on tangents and other topics. And all I'm trying to do is connect all the dots for people. It's up to people who listen to retrace those dots and say, well, hey, yeah, there's something here, and expand on their own. So why do the videos if I can't change the minds of anyone on any topic, on any side of the fence? Maybe, as I said before in videos, it's to assure those in between all this to stay strong. Guess you can kind of call that the silent movement. Those who are preparing to overcome, to adapt, to move forward, to survive. Perhaps that's a movement in itself. There's no violence, there's no ranting and raving or partying in the streets, none of that. These people, and you know who you are, quietly just say, hey, this makes sense, and just race to survive. And that's all any of us can do. As a descriptive, lucky ones, or the blessed ones, who don't have to deal with any repercussions of civilization today, well, keep your head down and keep moving forward. Things to think about. Anyway, thank you for watching. Please like, subscribe, comment, and share.
Listen to this and write it down if you can't remember it. You're never going to outgrow warfare. You simply must learn to fight. I hear people saying to me, oh, when is it going to get easier? When you die.